It's hard to believe we've already reached the 3/4 mark of Quack's Marble Clash Season 2, but here we are. Today we have Event 12 Jousting, one of the strength events this season after block bumping, and currently the City Lights jump into the point lead after aiming last time. They're coming off of 2 consecutive medals, and they're so far looking very strong, despite it being their rookie season, or at least their rookie main league season. But Jousting is an event familiar from last season. You can see the Malamex demonstrating here. Of course, they only have 2 marbles. The teams will actually be sending 4 of their members, but as you can see, it's just the goal is just to push the block into the other zone, the other side, and you can see the little center green block to demonstrate where the center is. But we begin with the City Lights and the Soaring Skies. City Lights currently at the top of the standings, and they're off to a good start here with their first 2 marbles. They're third now, building up a wall, and the Soaring Skies can do absolutely nothing about it. Usually a team that we've thought of as stronger in strength events, but the Soaring Sky is not going to be looking quite as strong here. They don't have a single medal yet this season, and unfortunately they will not be taking one here. The City Lights, though, they're doing a great job here, which is a good sign, considering we only have so many more events left. Every finish is going to count if they want to hold on to the point lead. Now the Red Rockets and the Snapping Turtles, the center of the standings these two are at, and we are off. The Red Rockets immediately have a good push with Tank there, and it's only getting better, but they don't have a defense set up, and now the Snapping Turtles are catching up a bit, but it's not going to matter. The Red Rockets hold on for the win there with their captain Thruster. I think it was the 2 captains at the end there, Thruster versus Bowser, and Thruster was the stronger of them. The Red Rockets in this event last season were pretty decent as well, but usually not thought of as being quite as strong in strength events, but nor are the Snapping Turtles, and they're not going to show it here. Losing by less than a centimeter, but still pretty strong, and the Red Rockets fans, considering they've been drifting a bit in the standings recently, need to get back on form. We'll be taking the top half here, but now the Ivy League and the Pollen Puffs, very plant-based round here, and the Ivy League have they have a very interesting strategy there with like a striker situation almost. They didn't set up any defense, but by using their captain to launch at the block, that seems like that actually helps them. Of course, it's a very risky strategy. The Pollen Puffs, luckily for the Ivy League, the Pollen Puffs didn't send anybody during that brief moment, and you can see there was actually that one Pollen Puff that jumped over the other, but either way, the Ivy League get a pretty decisive victory with a 1.7 centimeter margin, which is pretty comfortable, and so far all of the auto-qualified teams doing a decent job. Now the Loaves of Bread and King Crabs are not off to a great start here. The Loaves of Bread have a decent gap, but it's shrinking bit by bit. Will they be able to hold on? No! At the last moment, the King Crabs will be jumping ahead, and just barely, despite last season being actually very bad at this event, getting 15th place. This time around, they will be moving on. The Loaves of Bread held their own, though, and the King Crabs, usually thought of as being great in strength events, being meddling in both block pushing last season and block bumping earlier this season, and they're going to get a decent finish here. The Loaves of Bread came so close, but at the very least, with how small the margin was, they might still get close to best of the rest. But now we move on to the Slush Rush and Stone Golems. And they're all Slush Rush. Immediately have a big push with their captain. Ooh, but it's immediately counterattacked by the Stone Golems. It looks like, ooh, can they work it back? No. They're very, very close to getting it back to the center. But even if they had, the Stone Golems had one more marble left in there. And last season, we saw the Stone Golems have one marble fall out of the basin. This time, the track's been redesigned a bit, so that's not possible anymore. But the Stone Golems doing an excellent job. They're not having the greatest defense, but we've seen so far that offense is really the key here, instead of just building a wall like last time. And the Stone Golems are happy to be getting a top half finish, currently not doing the greatest in the standings, only 14th place. And now we move on to Team Pixie versus the Rose Rollers, 2 teams that at this point aren't really rookies anymore, have already found their footing this late into the season. But the Rose Rollers are absolutely crushing Team Pixie so far, really never in question there. They didn't win by the most. Team Pixie did a decent job of holding their own, but there was really never any point where they're gaining much on the Rose Rollers. And you can see the Rose Rollers being the winners of block bumping earlier this season. Unsurprising that they will be moving on in Jousting, another strength event. Now we move on to the Flashbangs versus Flying Saucers, 2 very alliterative names. And we're off. The Flashbangs have an early lead, and they're only growing it with their second marble. Ooh, but the Flying Saucers almost bring it back, but it's just too late. The Flashbangs will be holding on to move on to the next round, and that's another team that's drifted quite a bit in the standings. Currently 7th place, was briefly in the point lead earlier this season, trying to get back up there, and this will definitely help at least with a top half finish. But so far, a lot of the big championship contenders have been moving on. Now we move on to the Checkmates versus the Stingrays. Speaking of championship contenders, the Stingrays just lost the point lead, trying to get back up. The Checkmates have a huge lead right now. Ooh, but they're working it back bit by bit. The Stingrays, with their final marble, will be able to get it done. The Checkmates can't quite work it back. Disappointing for the Checkmates. They had such a big lead at the start, almost completely out of the green block past the center, but the Stingrays were just so consistent and had a great defensive wall set up, and just at the last moment, the Stingrays will work it back and take the win. Of course, that means that a lot of the big championship contenders are moving on here. Really, the Slush Rush, one of the only ones that aren't. The only ones in the top 7, I believe, that didn't make it. And they will be taking 14th. That's not a good sign for the team currently 3rd. But the Loaves of Bread, as I estimated earlier, will be taking best of the rest. And the Pollen Puffs, a disastrous dead last, coming off of the gold medal last event. Now we move on to the City Lights versus the Red Rockets. The City Lights immediately have a good push, and it's only getting bigger. Can the Red Rockets work it back? They're trying a little bit, but their 4th marble just can't quite get it done. The City Lights had just enough defense that it wasn't really going to matter, and that means that the championship leaders are going to get a top 4 finish here, maybe even a medal, which is huge for them. Of course, they were very solid in block bumping, so evidently the strength events proving to be a bit consistent here. The Red Rockets will still get a top half, but not quite what they were hoping for, especially considering they're not even in the top half of the standings right now, which is pretty rare for them. But now the Ivy League versus the King Crabs, 2 teams from the podium last season facing off here, and the King Crabs with a huge opening push. Look at that, their captain, and I don't think it's even going to matter the rest of this match. So with a massive opening push from Fiddler, reigning MVM, and they're showing why with a huge opening push. Of course, a lot of that was just timing. The Ivy League captain came down really, really late compared to the King Crabs, and there was no going back from there. The King Crabs will be moving on pretty comfortably here, and they've evidently redeemed themselves in this event. As I mentioned last season, getting 15th in this event, and now they're going to get at least a top 4. And that's huge for another big championship contender with the City Lights and the King Crabs both moving on. The Stingrays really have a lot of pressure. But for now, we move on to the Stone Golems versus the Rose Rollers. And they are off. The Stone Golems have a decent first push, but they don't have any defense set up, and the Rose Rollers are pouncing on that. It's very, very close, and the 4th marble, it's going to happen for the Rose Rollers just barely at the last moment. The Stone Golems looked like they had it, not having a great defense set up, which you'd think the defense would be the strength of a team called the Stone Golems, but the Rose Rollers just managed to work it back bit by bit, and that final push was just enough to get it done. And that means the Rose Rollers will be moving on a lot. All 3 of the medalists from block bumping have moved on to the top 4 here. And now we move on to the Flashbangs versus the Stingrays. Both teams in the top half, and the Stingrays off to a bad start, but they're working back a little bit. Ooh, it's very close between them, but I don't think it's going to matter. That last little bit from the Flashbangs was pretty wimpy compared to the Stingrays' 2nd and 3rd pushes. And you can see how the Flashbangs had no defenses set up, and right there they almost managed to take back the win, but it just wasn't going to happen. The Stingrays had extra marbles left, and that means the Stingrays are moving on as well. We have a lot of championship contenders still moving on. The City Lights, King Crabs, and Stingrays all in the top 4. Rose Rollers currently 6th, so anything could happen here. This is crucial for the standings. Now the Stone Golems getting best of the rest. Very pleasing for them, considering how much they've been struggling in their home season. And now we move on to the City Lights versus the King Crabs. Top 4 in the standings, both of these teams. And we're off this. It's a pretty even start, but the King Crabs are working back quickly with their 2nd marble, and I think it's already too late. The City Lights, not being able to get it done here. And of course, that is pivotal for both of these teams, because the City Lights are currently at the point lead, but the King Crabs aren't terribly far off of them. They could, with the gold or silver here, they could catch up. In theory, at least get close, but the King Crabs with a huge margin of victory, pretty comfortable there. Now the Rose Rollers and the Stingrays, another 2 teams that could definitely get higher in the standings. It's another very even matchup at the start, but the Rose Rollers have a bit of an advantage. The Stingrays trying to work it back. Ooh, it's just not quite enough. And the Rose Rollers, rolling away, didn't even have a bit of a defense there. Perhaps just trying to flex on them a little bit. But that means that the Rose Rollers will be moving on the Stingrays. That's pretty crucial for them as well, because they're 2nd in the standings. They will be facing off against the 1st place team in the standings in the bronze medal match. Of course, the Rose Rollers and King Crabs will be facing off in the final, which those are the top 2 in block bumping. And of course, the City Lights got bronze in block bumping, so it's looking like it's going to be a pretty similar result to that. But for now, you determine the bronze medal. The City Lights and the Stingrays. And we are off. It's the Stingrays with a better advantage. The City Lights trying to capitalize here when they work it back with their 2nd and 3rd. Now it all comes down to the final push, and oh my goodness, it's so close. And that with that extra rollback, I'm not sure who's going to get it. It looked like the City Lights had it, but they didn't have enough defense set up. And that teeny tiny push at the very end from the Stingrays, was that enough to take the win there? I really have no idea there. The City Lights could definitely use another medal here. That would be their 3rd in a row. And the Stingrays, of course, they could use one as well. These are the top 2 in the standings. And oh, it just came so close there. It's too hard to say. It's so close to the center right there. It looks like it might be just a bit past one edge, maybe. I'm not sure what the stewards are going to say, but it will be the City Lights. The City Lights take the bronze medal here, just as they did in block bumping, proving to be great at strength events, and the Stingrays came so close, but it's not going to happen. But now we move on to the final, the King Crabs versus the Rose Rollers, 2 very strong teams, and the King Crabs have another big opening push. Their 2nd is just as strong, and they don't have great defense set up, but it's not going to matter. The King Crabs are kings of strength events, now a gold medalist in block pushing last season, gold medalist here, silver medalist back in block bumping, and the Rose Rollers will have to settle for the silver. The Rose Rollers already had 2 gold medals this season, can't quite get a third here, but the King Crabs will be taking their 3rd gold medal of the season, and if I'm not mistaken, their first ever gold medal in the second half of the season, in either Season 1 or Season 2, so impressive by them, with big margins of victory for Round 2 and the semifinal and the final. Very impressive by them. We round out this event with a very familiar podium from block bumping, but the 2 red teams standing on top once again, proving their dominance here in the City Lights. Sneaking away with the bronze is going to be huge for their standings, and they are in the point lead right now. The King Crabs jump up into 2nd place, only 6 points behind, trying to become 2-time champions. The Stingrays drop down to 3rd, the Rose Rollers jump up to 4th, and now the top 4 in this event are going to be the top 4 in the standings by a pretty decent margin over the Ivy League, who hold on to 5th, as we move on to the next event, which will be Marble Cross. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching.